Well, today we're here with Connie Inglis. Are you Connie Mae Inglis?
Well, May is my middle name. I just wanted a unique name for as an author. Otherwise, most people just call me Connie. Yeah. So
Wow. Thank you for joining us, Connie. Connie is the author of this wonderful book, Rewriting Adam. And I have read it, and it is as fabulous as everybody says it is. And everybody should go and get a copy.
yeah, I wouldn't mind.
So, Connie, I think that with this book, you capture a character in Ethan that is someone everybody has met. Did you mean to do that?
Yeah, well, I wanted to make him real for one. And dealing with life struggles, and it seems these days there's just a lot of relationships that are broken down, and people are in a lot of pain, and a lot of adults that have grown up in very dysfunctional families, and they've been hurt, and yeah, they're kind of blaming the world for their issues when they don't realize that they can claim and do something about all of that for themselves. They do have a choice, I guess. Yeah, so hopefully that that people can connect, and just having some major fears, and just real internal struggle, I guess.
Yeah.
There's a lot of internal struggle for Ethan.
And people have very real reasons for their fears.
Yeah.
And Ethan has real reasons for his fears. He's had traumatic experiences.
Yeah.
But he's gone into this little spin of, somebody else has to do something about this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you're right. He does there is validity in why he has those fears, just in his past. And I can't even begin to imagine what he experienced as a child, the trauma, because my childhood was not like that. So, I mean,
tell us a little bit about your childhood then.
Well, it was just solid.
You were born on the prairie.
I was born in a little town called Borden, Saskatchewan. Yeah, I was actually born on the bridge of Borden, Saskatchewan, the Borden Bridge, if anyone knows that. My claim to fame, other than the novel that I just wrote. Yeah, but that's my claim to fame, I always say, because I was born, on the bridge.
In a car, like your parents were heading to the hospital,
no,
and you came before they got there.
They were heading to a family gathering, which, if you know my folks, then it's like, well, that doesn't surprise me, some sort of family activity. And then they crossed the bridge, and then my mom said, okay, this baby's coming, you better turn around, because Borden did have a hospital at that time. So my dad turned around and drove as fast as he could back to town, but I wasn't waiting for anybody. So yeah, out I came on the bridge.
That's awesome.
Yeah, good thing there weren't any complications, because there I was.
What's your birth order?
I'm the second. So
Second.
Mom had experienced one birth prior to that, and then I have 5 siblings. So I'm the second, and then 5 girls, and then 1 boy at the end. So
wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I had no idea that you were born on the Borden Bridge. I have to go and visit that bridge now.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So have you found yourself building bridges in your life?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would think everybody's life, they're hopefully building bridges. Yeah. So, yeah, just especially, I guess, growing up in a little town and ending up living and working on the other side of the world, a lot of bridges from where I started in this little, very isolated upbringing, I would say, you know,
Mhm.
small town Saskatchewan, to the big wide open world, and
Oceans away.
all the way to the other side of the world. Yeah. So
Give us the short version of how that happened.
um I went to Bible college after high school, and you know, I went there. My sister went to this school in another small town in southern Saskatchewan called Pambrin, Miller College of the Bible. And it's a very missions oriented school. So we had a lot of missionaries coming through. And actually, part of the graduation, if you wanted to graduate, you had to actually do some summer internship service in some capacity. And with between, I mean, when I did that, that's where God called me to missions. This small town girl. Yeah, and I ended up with Wycliffe because first I took a linguistics class that was just an optional class, but it intrigued me, and I just loved the study of language. And then I went on a 1-year missions internship program and went overseas just to see, you know, how I would do with adjusting to culture and language. And I love that too, and especially love the language, and just trying to figure it out. I went to the Philippines, and yeah, it was just so much fun, like the analytical part of it. So I thought, okay, Wycliffe was always in the back of my mind, but I wasn't sure, right, if I could hack it, or, you know, do it. So that really guided me towards, yeah, continuing with Wycliffe and taking their courses and getting the linguistics training that I needed. And in the process, I met my husband because he was taking those same classes one summer out in BC. And yeah, anyway, long story short, we ended up in Thailand working in that region, mainland Southeast Asia. So that's where my novel is set, which makes sense because that's, you know, part of the world I know. Yeah, we've spent many years there.
Why does Ethan go to Thailand?
You know what? So he marries a girl that grew up there, much like our kids. And he goes there. He just wants to get away from his life also in growing up in Edmonton, and just some really not good stuff happening. And he feels like he just needs to get away and figure out life and figure out, I guess, what he's going to do with himself or something. He just feels lost, really lost. So he goes to Thailand and he thinks it's just a place to go, but really, he really is trying to connect with his wife's roots, although he doesn't really admit that to himself. It's a subconscious thing. So yeah, so he visits places where she would have gone, you know, her school, and the university where his father-in-law, ex-father-in-law worked, and those kinds of things. So that's the connection with our life there, I guess. So yeah.
He's looking to understand his wife.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
And in the process of blaming her for what's happened.
Right, exactly. He does. He blames her and he blames his mother. So, you know, in the end, he's blaming all women for all the problems in his life. But yeah, really, he still has this attachment to her, and he doesn't understand it. But of course, you know, he loved her and he loves her still, I think, but he doesn't want to admit that to himself. So, you know, it's just his brain.
The compartmentalization, again, something that happens so much in this time,
Mhm.
people will have their life here and then their life here, and they're disconnected.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And again, you find a way to bridge that. You always remember for you for bridges.
Yeah, no one has ever told me that before. And that's really cool because that connects me back to where I was born. I was born on a bridge. And in this novel, I help Ethan build bridges, like good bridges. Instead of tearing down bridges, he starts to build bridges. And there's even a bridge reference in my novel um, that he can't cross himself. He needs help. Yeah. Which I'm just realizing right now as we're talking that, wow, that's quite a metaphor for, how the novel actually continues. You're very insightful, Nicola. Things my readers discover that I didn't even think about, but were there in the back of my brain because that's how the spirit led me, what I was led to write about. So cool. That's cool. Now I can do a little write-up about that.
Yeah, you may
Do a blog post, do something. It's like about bridges. Yeah.
One of the signs of a really great book is when the readers find things that the author didn't think about consciously, but because of the richness of this world, you have a very rich world and very rich characters. And so there's this there's a deep mine of rich ore that everybody will find something that they can relate to, and your great blog topic is hope.
Yeah,
right?
for
So
sure.
how did you come to hope as a foundational message that you want in all of your writing, but specifically the book you've just published?
Oh man, that's a huge question. How much time do you have? Well, the theme of hope was in my head, and I think that's also a spirit thing. Before the world of COVID, and just that the even more feeling of hopelessness since COVID, and even more so. But I think it started, and this is part of, I guess, part of my story also is I am a parent of an adult child who has bipolar disorder. And he was diagnosed as an adult. So 7 years ago, he was already, 24 and 25. And then all of a sudden, this illness became such a huge part of our family. And there was like, I knew nothing about the whole mental illness world, right? Boy, did we have to learn fast to catch up, to figure out, and to help him. And I learned to cling to Jesus in all that. And I saw so many times he stepped in and helped, and I kept seeing him show up. And it just made me so hopeful for whatever happened, but the promise of hope. And so I just felt like that is my kind of life theme, is hope, and wanting to offer the world hope when things seem hopeless. And I think for Ethan, he feels like his world is hopeless, but it's not, right? The people around you want to help and bring you hope. And of course, then there's the greater underlying hope that we find in the Trinity, and seeing him show up for us so then my theme, I mean, my the line, whatever you call it, just show up. That's became, my motto, I guess, just show up. And there's a lot of hope in that motto. So
yes. Yes, you show up with your hands open. You show up with your heart looking for good.
Yeah. And, looking for the Trinity in things when you think there's nobody there to help you. So, yeah. Yep. But people can help you guide. People help guide you in that direction, right? You can't do it alone is also kind of what Ethan is struggling with. He's trying to do everything on his own. You just can't.
So. Right. Well, tell us about Janice then. He's the main guide who takes Ethan by his very shaky hand and says, well, let's go this way.
Janice is a quirky character. I mean, he's like so much energy, so positive. Like, okay, let's do this. And he's the archaeologist that just shows up in Ethan's life, even though it turns out that Janice was actually, spoiler alert, Janice was actually looking for him. Ethan has the blonde hair, and in Thailand, nobody, of course, everybody has the dark hair. So he's looking for a blonde head in the world of black hair or dark hair or whatever. So, and he finds him eventually and brings him along. He knows Ethan is messed up, and yet he offers a lot of grace and
his grace is legendary. He never makes Ethan do anything.
I know.
Always,
one time he threatens, but
yeah, it's really a way of leading someone that allows them to have agency. And it's a beautiful thing, the way Ethan responds to that. We're all looking for someone to give us the choice, the agency, I have some control over what happens to me, kind of thing. And that's what Ethan was lacking in his attitude. I have no control. Everybody's doing this to me.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And then he meets somebody who says, you have control. That's like, I'll give you a choice, but the adventure on the other side, it's really worth the try.
Yeah. I'll give you a choice and I'll give you chances. Even when you mess up, I will, I'll keep giving you those chances. So that you can see for yourself that you really do have a choice, right?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, he's a great character, Janice. He was fun to develop.
Good. I wanted to talk about your linguistics. You're trained with Wycliffe for specifically Bible translation. How did you come to wanting? Well, did you, or was it handed to you? Here is a language that you are going to immerse your life in.
Well, okay, so we initially were assigned to the Philippines, and we went there for 2 years. But we were working with a small Muslim group in the south, and then one of our colleagues was kidnapped, and we had 3 little children with us at the time, and the people we worked alongside, they recommended we go back to Canada for a time and see if things would settle down in that area with extremists. They didn't. So then we were looking for a reassignment, and we happened to meet a couple when we were continuing our studies down in Texas, in Dallas, that worked in Thailand and area. And we were very intrigued with the work that they were doing, working with nationals and training nationals to do linguistics, not just expats. So Yeah, so long story short, that's how we ended up in Thailand. And then let's see, the main translator of the group that we're working with there, this is a small, like the church right now, there's only like 60 believers, but he became a believer and he realized like his people needed the Bible in their own language. They didn't have it. They had it in a trade language and in the language, the national language, but that doesn't hit the heart the way the language of the heart language that they grew up with, the mother tongue. So he actually approached our organization asking, is there someone that can help us? Well, we just happened to be finishing another project and looking for a new one. And so that's how we ended up working with this small group. Yeah, so, it was all a God thing, obviously, to direct.
How long ago was that?
2005, we've been working with them. So we're still, the New Testament is finished, but it hasn't been printed because of issues. And I won't go into all of that, but it's done. And now my husband mostly is working on parts of the Old Testament, continuing with that. So it's more like we were called to do translation work, and then God guided us along the way. It wasn't like we were called to a specific language group per se, but we were called to do Bible translation, which is like linguistics. In order to do translation, you need the training. And that's what linguistics is all about. Teaching you how to analyze a language, one that's not been written down, or else the script is so old that it needs to be revised. So that's, in our case, how that was.
Oh, there was a script.
Yeah, well, it was Sanskrit written, so like hundreds of years old. Yeah.
Thousands. Sanskrit is thousands.
Or Pali. Actually, I guess it was Pali with a P. So which is from Sanskrit. So so it was really old and most people couldn't read it. Only like the monks, only some high-end monks could read it. And all they had were Buddhist scripture, some in their language. They didn't have a lot.
Wow.
Yeah. So then my husband and this main translator took that script and revised it so people could read it. So it looked more like the national language. And even now, I mean, if you saw what it looked like, it's a non-Roman script. So looks like just like a bunch of circles and things. I could send you the word for hope in that language because I have
that would be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And they didn't have a word for hope in that language. So, what does that say about a people group that has no word for hope? I mean, they had a word for, I hope so, that kind of word, but not for hope. So now they compiled a word, like it's anyway, which they do in that language all the time. So so it's defined as the way awaiting expectingly. That's how it's, in English, that's what it means, the word. So, yeah. It's very cool. It's a very cool language. So, yeah.
So linguistics is more than just the way the sound is made in the mouth or the way it is written down. Can you expand on what more is in linguistics?
Oh, man. Okay. So you start with the sounds, right? So that's the phonetics, hearing the sounds and then making a symbol. In this case, they just revamped what was there. Then there's the phonology. So how do sounds go together to form words? There are rules. Like in that language, you can't have consonants like in English, STR together. That just doesn't work. You have to have a vowel in between. So if you're saying like Travis's name was Taravit, and you can't have a word ending in S, it just doesn't happen. They just don't, in their language, they don't have S endings. So, Travis doesn't even sound like Travis in that language. So and they don't have V's, they have W's. So there's all these rules. Every language has these rules. And then how you write the language has to follow those rules, or people won't be able to read. So then it goes all the way through these different stages, the grammar. So we have subject, verb, object. Well, theirs is subject, object, verb. The verb is at the end of the sentence. So if you don't know that when you're translating the Bible, it's, they won't be able to read it. So you have to know everything from the beginning to the end. You have to know the markers for how to write dialogue. So we have the quotation marks. Well, they have something different. They have tone. So you have to know how to mark the tone. It's all in there. And then in the end, it has to all make sense. So you can write a sentence, but if it doesn't make sense to them in the bigger picture, like a whole narration, a story, a parable, for instance, what's the point of translating a Bible that they can't understand? So there's the whole so the linguistics training leads you to be able to analyze the language enough. My husband can read and write, and he can read a passage of this language and translate it back into English just like that, because he knows. He might be the only Westerner that can do that in the world, actually, because it's not a big group. So yeah, it's very cool.
Oh yeah, I'm big into this too. And then you have the context of a biblical scene with sheep. And do they have sheep in the area where you're the people?
I think they're familiar enough now because of, the world is smaller. But yeah, even like the bread of life. Well, bread is like, well, that's a rich man's food. So, you have to think, do we translate it to rice? Because they eat rice 3 times a day, makes way more sense. So yeah, you have to know all those metaphors. Like you don't realize the Bible is full of metaphor. And so how do you translate those metaphors cross-culturally?
Yeah, geographically. Those metaphors are rooted in the land.
Yes.
And then you take them to a place, Thailand is lots of jungle and wet.
Olive trees. What are olive trees? What are fig trees? What are, Yeah.
It's a fascinating, it seems to me it's your life work with this language.
Yep. I mean, we've been with Wycliffe for 35 years. So.
Oh, wow. And your husband is still teaching the nationals and training them up in this.
Yep.
Translation.
That nationals from around the area. So, I mean, he teaches in English, but he teaches at a university where the people come from all over, and many of them, if not most of them, their goal or desire is to do translation or something involved with Bible translation for themselves in their own groups, in the area, or even in other areas. Like I say, the world is small. So and he loves that part too.
You are more than just a wife to the professor. You're right in there too, right?
Well, not as much as he is. Like I can't read the language like he does. So, but I'm the support. I have more of the the literacy training. So that's part of the bookmaking and all that kind of stuff. But for years when our kids were all going to school, then I wasn't involved so much, except in the school where our kids went to school, I was part-time. I was teaching part-time.
Oh,
And that's all in English. It's all,
was it an
American.
international school?
Yep. 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 So, yeah.
Now, how did the ghost stories come into rewriting Adam? They are from this language.
Yeah, those are directly translated from stories from people, and same with the folk tale. The folk tale is part of their history of where they came from, and how they came to be, and that giant tree, of course, but the ghost tales, yes, and even like our translation team, they will still say, as believers, they will still say, we have ghosts. I know that my neighbor is a ghost. Okay, so the spirit world, in their culture is so different than how we see ghosts, right? So that's the initial. I mean, that's the ghost stories that I use and I tell in the novel.
But how did they come to you? Who told them to you?
Oh, well, this is part of the team that's been helping with the translation work. But, in order to learn the language, you need lots of stories. So, my husband asked them questions like, can you tell me a story, some cultural stories, something unique in your language group that we wouldn't have, or I guess that's how do they know what we did and didn't have? But I don't know how it came about, except that the spiritual realm is so much as real to them as the physical realm. It all intertwines. So the ghost stories were just part of who they are, part of what their culture is. And and then the folktale actually tells how ghosts came to be in their culture. So where they initially came from. So I guess it also was part of our journey, not necessarily with ghosts, but our daughter there was some major spiritual attack as a child for her, that she would see this evil creature at the end of her bed at night laughing at her. We couldn't see it, but she could see it, and it was just very, very creepy. And thus there's that, you see that painting in the back there? Yeah. That's done by my daughter, and that's like a really creepy clown, and there's a little girl who's,
and there's another painting by your daughter on that wall.
That's the one that's the book cover.
Yes,
it becomes the book cover. So those two are by her.
Those are profound paintings.
Yeah. I think those are the only two by her. Yeah. Some of the others are by my other daughter, and then one is by my sister, and then by me.
Yes.
So I wanted a wall of art back there.
It's a wonderful testament to you and your family and your hope and your message.
It is. You're right.
Yeah. It's your family art gallery.
Yes. Yes, it is. And that's like, it makes me so happy just, working in here. I have a chair right back there, and I like to sit in there. And on this wall is a huge fan from Thailand.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, that I have up on the cupboard there. So these are all things from our lives, back from our lives living overseas. So.
Right. And as soon as you can, you're going to go back there, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. We now live half time there and half time here because our kids are all here. We have grandkids here. The grandkids are especially a real drawing card for us to stay in Canada. But yeah, I mean, that doesn't mean our hearts aren't still there and the work, because it is our passion to see. I mean, what does scripture do? It offers us hope, right? That's what the Bible does. It offers people hope in a hopeless world. So, yeah.
And you've seen that in that people group.
Yes.
And everywhere you go, you've seen that hope blooming.
Yeah.
And lives being changed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
there's so many languages, like in that country alone, there's over 100. So, you know, there's lots of work to do. And yeah, people need to know the hope that we have, you know, in Jesus. So
yeah. Oh, that's wonderful.
I was just going to say, very insightful questions, actually. Like you've made me more aware of things that I wasn't even aware of myself, like I said.
But I would rather talk about you as the author, as the fountain pen,
right,
of this literary work and all the themes and metaphors. Oh, here's a question. Are you going to have this book translated?
That would be tricky. I mean, I actually asked our colleagues, how would you say rewriting Adam in Thai?
Oh.
And basically the response was, well, you could say it like this, but the Thai people wouldn't understand. Because it's like a metaphor, like the whole thing. It's not rewriting a person. I mean, it's not just rewriting. How do you rewrite a person, right? What does that mean? So there's way more to that word than just, you know, for them, that rewriting would mean just taking a pen and rewriting something. They don't, there's nothing deeper for them. Whereas for us, we know you can rewrite a world, you can rewrite a person, you know, that kind of deeper metaphor. They said, yeah, you might have to say it differently, like the changing of Adam or something. Well, yeah, then it gets lost in translation.
Or something like walking back over his footsteps.
Something, I don't know.
That would be an African kind of way. That's how.
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
So if you walk back over your footsteps, you're trying to change what you have laid down.
Yeah. If I could find a metaphor like that in the Thai language, or the language that we work in, in the book, the Kim Shot. So even then the title, it's hard to translate, let alone the whole novel.
Yeah. Thank you so much for spending time to explain all these things and to give us the stories, show us who Connie Mae Inglis is.
Well, thank you, Nicola. That was a lot of fun, actually.
Good. And best of luck with your book, and everybody just go out and buy a copy for yourselves. We'll put all the links that Connie has so that you find it very easy to find. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.